Do, 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 do. So, as a visible disclosure, we'd like to inform any participants that any and all Zoom series is and will be recorded. The purpose of this is to provide the Zoom series to those who participated or missed out on the session. It is also provided the information for participants to refer back to. In addition to the visible disclosure, this statement will be orally stated at the beginning of each Zoom series like I am right now. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it off to our speakers today.
All right. We have two speakers today, or I guess that'd be four, so two. We've got Tracy Neal and Kendall Eldridge. They're both coming live from Golden Gate. And I heard there might be thunderstorms up there today. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on a severe fire watch and thunderstorm warning until tomorrow. So
Yeah.
if power goes out and you lose me, I have no control over that because PG&E has been known to shut our power off for days up here.
Yeah.
So
I just tried to record and it says, please ask permission. May I record? My husband isn't home and would love to see this.
We are recording it right now.
For the website, huh?
So we'll record it and then we'll upload it and let everybody have the link to it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yep.
On mute.
So I'm gonna ask everybody to go on mute and then I'm gonna hand it off to Tracy and Kendall and thank them both for taking time to share a little bit about Golden Gate and the work that they do. And I'll let them do a little bit of an introduction of themselves. So thank you both.
well, thank you, Sarah. Honored to be asked to partake in all of your great presentations. I've read through some of the titles, very inspiring and amazing what you're doing with your volunteers to keep everybody connected. So kudos for that. It's been a challenge here. So my name is Tracy Neal and I'm a volunteer coordinator working with Golden Gate National Recreation Area. I've been here for about 6 years. In December, I will hit my 20-year mark for federal service. So that's definitely a benchmark. And I've been here at Golden Gate managing volunteer programs for our maintenance division for just over 6 years now. I hit 6 years in June. So, yeah. And then Kendall is here with me.
Hi, I'm Kendall. If you've seen a lot of the presentations before, you're familiar with Lay, the CVA at Santa Monica Mountain. So I am a second-year CVA up here at Golden Gate National Recreation Area, and I've been working with Tracy in the volunteer program for 2 years now. So.
So happy to talk with you a little bit more about Golden Gate. So I guess if we could share screen, unless anybody else needs to introduce themselves.
I think we're good to go.
All right, so see here. It's not letting me share my screen. Here we go. Tell me when you see it.
There we go.
Yes? Okay,
Yep.
great.
You're good.
All right. So it looks like we have, wow, how many people are here joining us today?
Us included.
33?
Yes.
33, but we have a couple of pairs on this call, so.
Oh, fantastic. So thank you, Sarah, for the invitation to be here. First time I've actually put on my work shirt since March 17th, so I had to go find it in my closet. Look a little professional, I guess, for this today. So I like to throw out a question. So throughout the presentation, Kendall and I will be throwing out a couple questions, and we'll either ask you to raise your hand or to put a couple words in the chat just to kind of share some of the thoughts and things that we're talking about today. So my first question is, how many of you have been to Golden Gate National Recreation Area before? So I don't know if we can show a raise of hands. I know a lot of people don't have their screens up. All right, looks like most. So I'm scrolling through, except some thumbs up, great. Looks like a good amount, but it still looks like there's a variety that have never been up here. So happy to share with you. When Sarah and I were first talking about this and what it is that we could talk about during this presentation today, I started delving into the history of Golden Gate and just realizing how, like a lot of your parks, how amazingly huge and complex this park is, and that there were still a lot of things that I didn't know. And even after 6 years, places I had never been within my own park. So it was really hard to go, okay, what can I focus on today? We're so huge and so diverse. So with that said, Golden Gate National Recreation Area, very large, very urban, and we compete with Santa Monica Mountains as to deciding who is the largest urban national park, based on how you want to quantify the land and ownership. So we like to call ourselves the largest one. They like to call themselves the largest one, and it's a fun little dispute we've got going on. But Golden Gate National Recreation Area itself is over 80,000 acres of property, and it spans over 60 miles north and south of the Golden Gate Bridge. It goes all the way up to kind of the top of Point Reyes here, and then all the way down across 3 counties, down into San Mateo. So from Marin County, San Francisco, and San Mateo County. There are over 27 designated sites in the park. So, okay, what's a designated site? I guess a site specifically laid out with a name. So I was trying to figure out how to show that a little better. So I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the highlighted areas that we have in our 3 counties to give you a taste of what Golden Gate is. We could be here for days if you wanted me to talk about the complex history of the park, the history of the cultural and natural resources, partnerships and everything else. So I'm just going to kind of give you a taste of that today. And then I'll talk a little bit more about our volunteer program, because that's where Kendall and I focus, about the overall program for Golden Gate, and then a little bit more specifically about what Kendall and I do with the maintenance division. So if that sounds good, we're going to move right on ahead. So Marin County is that beautiful land on the north side of the Golden Gate Bridge that spans all the way from the Marin Headlands up into Point Reyes National Seashore area. The main sites have the Marin Headlands and Rodeo Beach and Lagoon is what you see here. Oh, where is my cursor? So we have Rodeo Beach and Lagoon. We have the Point Bonita Lighthouse. How many of you have been to the Point Bonita Lighthouse? Gone on a tour? If you haven't been, when it reopens, highly recommend it. It's an amazing little suspension bridge that leads you out to this little point with this beautiful historic lighthouse. The Marin Headlands itself has a diversity of places to visit within itself. So we have several historic forts. Fort Cronkite, you can see here in the picture. We have a Marine Mammal Center and a YMCA. We have a hostel. We have several military fortifications, including old Seacoast fortifications and a working Nike missile site. The missiles are no longer armed, but if you do come out and go on a tour, you can actually see them rise up out of the ground, and they'll actually come up, and when you're driving through the headlands and look, all of a sudden there's a missile on the side of the hill. They go down into the missile pits to go underground to see where the missiles are stored and give you a demonstration on how they would have been fired. So a lot of great things to see in the Marin Headlands. And this is where Kendall and I are both stationed. Our office is over here in Fort Cronkite. And then we both live in Rodeo Valley here. So we've both been fortunate enough to live in the park. The park has limited housing for staff. And so We're both fortunate to be there. But the Marin Headlands itself has an amazing amount of places to visit within it if you ever come out. We have Fort Baker, which is in the Marin Headlands as well, but another designated historic site in the park. And it's a 1905 Army post that has several seacoast fortifications. One that's open access to the public. You can just walk right on through. There's some interpretive signs and some amazing views. Anytime I'm up on Battery Yates, I see wildlife such as sea lions, I see whales, dolphins, lots of sailboats, just amazing views of the great landscape around. You can see the Golden Gate Bridge and Angel Island, and just a great place to wander up. And a lot of people that come to Fort Baker don't know about it and don't go up there. So if you ever have a chance to go up to Battery Yates, I would highly recommend it. And Battery Yates is up on the bluff, kind of off to the left here that you can't see. It's hard to get a good picture to show the old military fort and parade ground, but this is a very highly visited area because the thousands upon thousands of bicyclists that like to bicycle the bridge from the city all tend to come down and through here at Fort Baker. So it's a very well-known, very visited site. Muirwoods National Monument. So our park is a national recreation area that hosts both a national monument and a national historic site. And so Muirwoods National Monument is up here on the Headlands side of the park. Has anybody been to Muirwoods? A couple hands. All right. Yay.
Pretty hard.
Couple thumbs up. Okay.
Pretty hard.
Another very
park anymore.
What was that?
It's pretty hard to park in there anymore. We've driven 2 miles in all directions and it says find the bus and we could never find the bus. So, but our children and grandchildren have hiked those paths. It's beautiful.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they started a reservation system 2 years ago because the park was so overcrowded and parking became very dangerous of people parking on either side of the highway, and the highway goes like this down the hill. So people were walking on this curvy mountain road with buses and cars flying by. And so they had to instill a reservation system, which actually spreads out visitation. They still get about 5,000 people a day on a busy summer day. But they're able to spread that out through the reservation system by staggering arrival times. So you have to make a reservation. And right now they did open. So they are open now, and they've actually reduced their reservations to, I think, what is it, about half to a quarter of what it used to be. And it's funny when you go out there, there's big 6-foot tables in front of the rangers to keep people at their distance and then information boards to provide information. But it's quite a magical place. In one of 2 redwood forests that the park actually oversees. So, and of course the banana slug, the mascot of our redwood forest there. I always ask the kids, please don't lick the banana slugs, because I don't know where that came from, but all the kids that come out, tons of school groups are like, lick it. I'm like, why do you want to lick a banana slug? But anyway, so just fun little tidbits of things that we talk about with the kids that come out there. The park manages a variety of beaches, at least 5 up in the Marin County side. I think one of the most popular being Stinson Beach, which is a large swath of, light sand where people congregate, and it's a magical area, but definitely a very well-known, well-used beach. And on Stinson Beach, it's actually near the town of Stinson Beach, which is a very quaint little coastal town, unless it's overrun by visitors. And then Muir Beach, which is kind of just over by Muir Woods, where the Redwood Creek that comes through Muir Woods, this is where the creek meets the ocean. So we have very unique ecosystems in there and a lot of habitat restoration to bring back our coho salmon and rebuild our lagoon and the health of the area. So Marin County just is an amazing place. You could spend weeks here and not see everything. And I'm pretty sure there's probably somewhere I haven't seen, even though I've been here for 6 years, but I keep trying. I've hiked most of the trails. There's over 130 miles of trails in the park alone. So I've done most of the Marin side. The San Francisco and San Mateo sides are just next. So with that, I always like to share where's my favorite place in the park. This is something I get asked pretty often, and that is Kirby Cove. Has anybody heard of Kirby Cove before or been there? Ah, not many, just a few. So Kirby Cove is actually just on the north side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and down a little road where there's an old military battery. And as you drive down this windy, curvy road into this, where this old military battery was, you come into a eucalyptus and pine forest. And in that, we've got our campground, Kirby Cove Campground, which most people have told me it's very difficult to get a reservation. And we also have a beautiful beach. And so this is one of the lesser visited area of the park, because unless you have a reservation to camp, you actually have to hike down the road about a mile. And then at the end of the day, hike back up. So that's one of the reasons I love it, is because of its seclusion. And then just the feeling of being so far away from the city, yet you're sitting here and have a campsite almost underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. I've never camped there. I've heard amazing stories of the raccoons and how they love visiting the campers at all hours. And then also just, yeah, just a beautiful spot. So with that, if you haven't read the question, do you have a favorite park spot? And if so, feel free to add in the chat, where is that? Doesn't have to be in Golden Gate, doesn't even have to be in the US. So if you had to think of your favorite park spot, what is that? And so go ahead and feel free to share. And if Sarah or Kendall, you want to read out any of those answers, I have too much going on my screen to see any of that.
We've got a couple of answers. Glacier Point, Lamar Valley, Samuel P. Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool place.
Yeah, there's so many amazing places and park sites to visit. It's hard to pick a favorite. So that's why I chose my park. Okay, pick a favorite spot in my park. Like I said, because people ask me all the time. So, and the real reason I'm asking this question is so where I know where to go next. Is to get all the insider views from all the volunteers out there and where they like to go. Because I'm always looking for those unique spots and beautiful places that people hold dear to themselves. And so yeah. Any more answers in the chat or anybody from the phone?
Yeah, Point Reyes and somebody's son, Caitlin's son, got their first Junior Ranger badge from the Marin Headlands.
Ooh,
What year was that, Caitlin? I'm just curious if I was the one who gave it to him. Oh, 2018. No, I was down here by then. Sandstone Peak, which is down here, and Tracy and Kendall, if you ever come down here, we'll have to take you up there. It's pretty spectacular. And Red Beach in Olympic.
oh, very nice.
I'd probably have to back up Olympic. I think my favorite spot would be the Hoh Rainforest.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't been there yet either. Okay, add it to the bucket list. All right. So, oops, you can tell I used to be an interpreter because I like to talk a lot, and so we'll move this along. So then in San Francisco County, we have a lot of iconic sites, that being Crissy Field and the Presidio being a very predominant one on the south side of the Golden Gate Bridge. The Presidio of San Francisco is actually over 200 years old of military use. Before it came to the park, it used to have an airstrip running through here. And it has the parade grounds and old Army buildings. There's several hundred historic buildings throughout the Presidio. And It's just an amazing place, and it's actually the majority of the land is managed by the Presidio Trust, which I'll talk about just in a little bit here. But in pointing out the other sites, have anybody been to the Sutro Baths ruins? Right there on Land's End. So again, this is just south of the Golden Gate along the coast. Oh, I see some hands, that's great. Another iconic site where the old Cliff House used to be. And then just below that would be Ocean Beach, where we have several miles, 3.5 miles of shoreline that the park manages, right alongside San Francisco. So you can imagine the amount of visitation and the amount of challenges we have with the Ocean Beach site being right on the side of the city of San Francisco. Fort Point National Historical Site. That's yet another designation within our park. It's an old masonry, actually, fort that was built by the Corps of Engineers in 1853. A fun story about the fort that I like to share is that in the 1930s, it was actually slated for destruction. When they were going to build the Golden Gate Bridge, they actually were going to tear down the fort. But then the chief engineer of the bridge, Joseph Strauss, actually decided that it would be horrible to destroy such a beautiful site. And he even said that it should be preserved as a national monument. And then in 1970, it was designated as a National Historical Site. So due to his vision and his love of the old architecture, he actually saved Fort Point, which is also a highly visited place in the park right underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. So if you want some of those iconic photos looking up and down the bridge, that's where you go. And then Fort Mason, where our headquarters is located, that's actually our headquarters building. Lower Fort Mason is well known for off-the-grid little food festivals throughout the summer, and they have a lot of big pavilion space where the beer festival and the Christmas festival and all sorts of great things happen there. And then, of course, the iconic, ever-knowing Alcatraz Island. So I don't think I need to say more about Alcatraz Island because we could be here for like 3 days. So what's that?
Real quick, we have somebody who is watching with a friend who was stationed at the Presidio as an MP. And
oh,
so
that's amazing.
You know.
What a connection.
Yeah.
There's such a history here in this park, from Native Americans to the military to the Spanish and the Mexican ownership, and just, it's amazing. I learn more and more about this park every year. And I think I could be here for 20 years and still not know everything. So then moving on, if you, a little bit closer to you, very close, but a little bit closer would be all of our sites. Most of these are newer to the park. The park has acquired land in San Mateo County, and some of them being actually very new to the park. The newest one to the park would be Rancho Corral de Tierra, and that was 4,000 acres, and it has it's 4,000 acres of undeveloped land in the South Bay, which you can't really find anymore. And the it used to be it's actually currently managed by the park, the state parks, and actually the county together. And that was brought into Golden Gate in 2011. So that's our newest acquisition that I know of here in the park. And then we have Maury Point, which was a gravel and sand extraction site during World War II. And if you're a wildflower enthusiast, this is where you go in the spring. We have amazing fields of wildflowers out here in Maury Point. The Flager Estate, which surprised me, the park has actually managed the Flager Estate since '95. I thought it was a lot later than that, but in the Flager Estate is one of the redwood forests that the park manages. So It's a great place to go for hikes. It's 1,300 acres and a lot of it being redwood forest being protected by the park. We have Malagra Ridge, which was an old Nike missile site. And then we have Sweeney Ridge, which is interesting because it has a plaque there, and it was where Captain Gaspar de Portola first sighted the San Francisco Bay in 1769. So it's a beautiful ridge with amazing vistas, and then it's actually an historical site with a plaque to Portola. So that's a quick overview, just a select few of the 37 designated sites throughout the park. And then we talk a little bit about the volunteer programs as a whole in Golden Gate. So looks like my graphics have shifted a little since I've uploaded it, but very big, very complex volunteer programs that we have here at Golden Gate. So here we share our volunteer programs across 3 different agencies, and we all work together in sharing our resources and volunteers as well. Across the park, we've got our Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, which is the park's primary nonprofit partner. And they've become actually the hub of the volunteer programs for Golden Gate. So they recognize the need and were able to bring in staff and funding. So they are the ones that do primarily a lot of the outreach and recruitment for our volunteers. And they also have a hub on the website where they manage all of these requests coming in. Fortunate being an urban site, we have a lot of corporations and a lot of businesses that like to come out and volunteer. And so our Parks Conservancy is that hub where they take in all of those requests, and then they filter them out, and then they filter out those requests to the over 100 people in the park that actually work with volunteers directly. So that's across the Conservancy, the National Park, and our partner, the Presidio Trust as well. So we have a very diverse program. Over 25,000 volunteers came through on an average of the last 3 years, with over 400,000 volunteer service hours. So it's very large and very complex. And I'm the first one to tell you, I don't know everything our volunteers are doing here in the park either. I learn more every day. But here are some of our more popular and well-known programs. That being the nursery programs. We have currently 3 operating native plant nurseries in the park, where they collect native plant seeds from the different areas and are able to propagate those seeds and then send those back to the areas they were collected to help with restoration projects. And then we have over 130 miles of trails, a lot of which, a lot of hands and a lot of sweat and hard work of volunteers to help keep those accessible and in good condition for all of our hikers, equestrian riders, and our bikers that come through the park. Landscape and maintenance, that's us. And Kendall will talk a little bit about what we do a little bit later. We have a couple hundred interpretive docents throughout the park, which you find in any of the areas where there's high visitor contact, such as in our visitor centers, giving tours of the Nike missile site, working in some of our military batteries, giving nature walks in Muir Woods. Our docents are phenomenal. We have habitat restoration stewards that go and they monitor critical habitats. They do restorations such as invasive species removal, planting of native plants, and just a restoration of our parklands. So, and most of these go north and south of the Golden Gate Bridge as far as the habitat restoration. And then we have our Golden Gate Raptor Observatory, which has been in operation for over 30 years. And they have volunteers that do hawk watches, which is, they go up on Hawk Hill and monitor over, 30 species of raptors. They do the counts and keep track of the data of all the birds that they've been monitoring for over 30 years. And then they also help band raptors. So they capture and band raptors to help with that data collection. So And then there's some that didn't make it on here, like our volunteer horse patrol with our law enforcement, and just so many different things happening in the park. So with that, if you have the inclination in our chat, put in there, what is it that inspires you to volunteer? Because as you all know, our parks could not survive without volunteers. They couldn't keep up the safety and the health and just the beauty of our national parks, help us preserve and protect them. So what is it that inspires you to volunteer?
And while everybody's putting their answers into the chat, I'm going to just kind of give you an overview of what Tracy and I actually do, and talk about our volunteer in parks maintenance or historic landscaping and maintenance program. So Tracy and I coordinate volunteers for our maintenance division volunteer program, specifically in the North District. So that's right, our park is so big that our programs span 2 districts in the park, that being the North and the South, separated by the Golden Gate Bridge. And so our program certainly covers more diversity in projects, so we never run out of things to do. And I'll go into what those projects are in just a few slides. The photo shown here is a mix of park and conservancy interns, community volunteer ambassadors. You might recognize Lay sitting right there to my right, and volunteers as well. So this photo was taken on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's a day of service. And so we were up at Stinson Beach picking up trash. And as you can see, this is our usual trash turnout on a large holiday weekend. So do we have some answers in the chat from the question before we go on to the next?
Sarah, would you like to read out one or two?
Yeah. So we just had someone say, I volunteer because I love our park down at Cabrillo and enjoy teaching visitors why we preserve and protect resources. Another person said, satisfaction of knowing what others will enjoy, that others will enjoy the park and have access to maintain trails, share and enjoy the diversity of plants and wildlife. I think there was one, see if I can get, there we go. Carrie said, preserving and promoting our public lands and sharing with the public. So, Anne said she loves interacting with the children and she thinks it's so important for them to know about their parks. So.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
And then just to stay engaged in the chat, we also want to ask if there are any maintenance projects that you might have participated in as a volunteer. And then Tracy, we can go on to the next slide. So as I talked about before, we have many different projects to choose from, depending on the season also. So most of our projects are broken down into 2 categories, that being routine and deferred maintenance. Our routine maintenance projects include tasks that need to be done annually or seasonally. This can be painting street and parking curbs, which you can see here to the left. We have a volunteer painting a parking curb at Fort Baker. Removing overgrown vegetation at our historic sites, beach cleanups, and preparing campgrounds for opening and closing season. Another category is deferred maintenance, and I'll go into this in more detail a little bit later on, but this includes projects that should be done routinely, but may not be done so due to a multitude of factors. And these projects typically take a little bit longer than a day's work or require specialized skills, such as these volunteers pictured. They are from the Headland Center for the Arts. and they are refreshing the paint on the placards at the Nike missile site. So next slide, please. Another favorite routine task that we try to get to is deck flossing. So we actually go to Muir Woods, and there is a boardwalk that spans a pretty large area of trail. And we take these deck flossing tools and pull all of the duff out from in between them. So duff is a term that we use to refer to the needles and fine plant matter that falls to the base of trees. Of course, when we have a boardwalk there, it gets trapped in between. So by removing the duff from the boards, we preserve the boardwalk so that it doesn't trap in moisture as well and can let them drain. All right, next.
And there's almost a mile of deck.
It's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with. And so this is our 2019 stats just for Tracy's and my North District Maintenance Division. So this doesn't even include the stats for the South District. We had 1,228 volunteers who contributed 3,987 hours. And then the rest of the stats below here just kind of go to show a little bit more of the different projects that we work on over the course of a year. And we can go to the next one, Tracy.
I see people
Once
still
they have a minute to look at it,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. Do we have any chats about have people done maintenance work? That'll be a good time to read out a couple of those.
Yeah, so we've had some people that have planted oak trees, habitat restoration and trail maintenance, weeding of invasive species, and working at the native plant nursery, restoring habitat.
Nice. I know there's somebody on the phone. If they want to shout out, feel free. I don't want to leave anybody out. So.
And somebody also spoke up and said maintenance as a daily affair at Paramount Ranch, typically before a tour. So often there's a lot of trash pickup and pulling nails and staples and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. So at Muir Woods, along with the deck flossing, we have split rail fronts along each side for quite a distance. And we have 2 volunteers that just go out every Monday and fix the split rail fence. So it's a lot of work.
All right, and then I'll go into kind of who our volunteers are. Other than superheroes, our volunteers consist of corporate groups, friends groups, and these can be one-time or regular groups. We actually have a couple of corporate and friend groups that have been coming out to volunteer with us for many years. So we kind of consider them long-term regulars. We also have one more popular volunteering opportunity for individuals who just want to come out and see what we do for a day, this being at our Nike missile site. When our park is operating more regularly in non-COVID terms, we have an opportunity every 3rd Friday of the month at our Nike missile site. And then this is usually in tandem with our tours, so you could actually see those missiles come up. If we have an event planned, this is another good opportunity to come out as an individual. Often these events are just walk up, sign up. So we don't try to limit those opportunities. And we have just a really small pool of dedicated long-term individual volunteers, but we're really hoping to change that in the future. So a couple of these dedicated individuals are the ones that go to Muir Woods and work on our fencing or come out to our Nike missile site drop-in program really consistently. And then we also have a program called an Adopt a Site program. And this can also be an Adopt a Battery program, falls under this. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So our Adopt a Battery program was initiated in the fall of 2017. So Tracy conveniently got inquiries from 3 different individuals and got them together, set them to work on painting over the graffiti at 3 of our most popular batteries in Marin. To date, these batteries we try to get taken care of about once a month. And the results of decreased vandalism has been extremely evident. So I also am showing you this graph that shows how much, what the square foot of graffiti abated over time. So you can see from fall, when we first started, all the way at the top of the graph here. That's kind of our starting point. And then from there, we have had to paint over less graffiti. I guess vandals are just finding that it's a waste of their money if it just gets painted over in the next month. So you can see a slight little hiccup in the winter of 2019. This is actually when our government shutdown last happened and we couldn't have volunteers out. So it'll be an interesting prediction to see what our numbers are going to look like for coming up next after we can have our volunteers back.
I can already tell you that it's going to jump up to about there because, you know, without allowing volunteers due to the COVID pandemic, which is a good thing, I've gone through a few of our sites and they're going to be busy when they get back. So, yeah.
Yes. Very, very exciting data to come. And as I talked about before, deferred maintenance. So deferred maintenance is getting a little bit more popular in the NPS to refer to projects that are not completed on a schedule, have been put off or delayed for those various reasons. This could be due to a lack in funding, resources, or staffing. So at our park, we typically consider a project to be deferred if it has not been completed in 2 years. So this image, or a couple of images here that I've shared, a big project that we had last year in the upper left shows our sentry dog kennels at the Nike missile site. And so the right kind of shows what it looked like before when we first walked in there. We had to push that gate open. There was so much vegetation in the way. Various tools were just strewn about. You couldn't even tell there was a walkway going around. And then it took about 3 to 4 volunteer groups coming out consecutively to clear out all of this brush. We repainted the red warning stripe around the kennel, and it looks like a functioning kennel now. So a long-term goal is to have local canine units actually come out and give examples of what sentry dogs would have done back in the day of duty. So this is just one example of what our volunteers are doing to kind of enrich the interpretation experience for future visitors.
And then I'm going to jump in if you don't mind. We had a variety of our docents that work in the Nike missile site rebuild the agility course for the sentry dogs. And so when we bring law enforcement or canine units out there, they can actually run them through the agility course and do demonstrations of what they would have done. So as well as walk them around through our kennel area of what was active during the Nike missile time in the 1960s. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, great. Always great stories being told by our inter-rangers, especially at the Nike missile site. So the pictures in the upper right show the campground at Kirby Cove. And believe it or not, everything that you see in the picture on the left is currently in the picture on the right. It's just covered in vegetation. So our volunteers go, usually we have Boy Scout troops that come out every year to kind of help us get these sites ready. And they uncover the tent pads. So, and then the bottom left, we have one of our friends groups out refreshing the paint on Battery Townsley. And Battery Townsley is really, really neat battery in the Marin Headlands. It's actually, well, not right now, but usually open the first Sunday of the month. You can actually go inside and get an amazing tour and pretty closely see what it would have looked like back when it was operational. So highly recommend taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's only possible because of our volunteers. We have a retired park ranger that adopted the site and recruited volunteers, and he and his team they're the ones that opened up the battery and rebuilt exhibits and cleaned it up and made it safe for visitation and give the tours. So that's a completely volunteer managed site.
So in this upcoming year, as you can imagine, we're going to be facing some pretty big challenges. We're trying to establish some more sustainable programs that can continue in this post-COVID-19 world. So it's going to be quite some time before we can host large groups of volunteers again like we were able to in the past. So, and of course, this also includes like decrease in staff availability from park and park partners. And our goal is to continue preserving our park through securing some smaller groups into our Adopt a Site and Adopt a Battery programs. Our Adopt a Site and Adopt a Battery programs, again, this is when we kind of support volunteers who want to come to one specific site once a month. We supply all the tools, everything that they need. They just submit the stats back to us of what they've accomplished. So it's a great kind of hands-off way to get more sites taken care of and also give people kind of like a place to call their own. So yeah, this is a program that we're trying to expand. We have our Adopt a Battery program currently at 3 batteries, and we're trying to expand that to at least 1 more and also adopt out Stinson Beach to 2 different groups because it's a very large site. And so in this picture that you see here is with the Bay Area Climbers Coalition, and they actually boulder in the southern section of Stinson Beach and have expressed a lot of interest in coming out to clean up the area in which they recreate. So just kind of a way that they like to give back to the place that they play in. So yeah, and also getting more regular recurring groups. We have a couple of these, but it's just easier when you can have groups come out that have already been trained to do tasks and limit staff needing to retrain everybody. Getting skill-based volunteers is going to be essential to assisting staff take care of places that are more difficult to do so. So these are just some things that we'll be working towards in the upcoming year.
Yes.
All right. So with that, we want to thank you all as the incredible volunteers that you are, supporters of your local parks, for participating in this webinar alone. We know that you enjoy your natural spaces, and so we hope that you learned something new about Golden Gate National Recreation Area, and that if you're not inspired to come volunteer with us, at least come out and visit us sometime. So at this point, we'll take any questions if you have them from any of the topics that we covered or not. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy and Kendall. I really appreciate you taking time to put this together and talking about Golden Gate and showing us some of the really cool work that you're doing up there with volunteers. And does anybody have any questions for Kendall or Tracy about Golden Gate or about volunteer work that they do?
And if you don't have a question, you can also tell us maybe what's something that you would like to see happen in the future of national parks, or I suppose a future national park. All are really interesting ideas to hear. So,
here's a really good question. Would either of you like to explain what a battery means?
Sure. So we call a lot of our seacoast fortifications batteries, and those are military structures that were built to protect the Golden Gate. And basically they housed very large cannon style guns. Battery Townsley hosted guns that were 26 inches in diameter, the shells were, that could fire, I'm sorry, 16 inches in diameter that could fire 26 miles out into the ocean to protect us from incoming ships back in the late 1890s is I think when that one was built. So basically military structures where soldiers would have been maintaining and manning large guns to protect the San Francisco Bay.
Yeah, it's also interesting because you can see the evolution of military strategies and why they changed the batteries from World War I to World War II. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting going up there and looking at some of the really old batteries and Fort Cronkite, or not Fort Cronkite, but Battery Townsley being one of the ones that was the most recent of the batteries up there being used. And they ran some really interesting experiments in that battery too. So, any impact or threat to Golden Gate from the current wildfires?
Good question. So the closest wildfire was the Woodwood Fire that was actually in Point Reyes National Seashore. But as far as Golden Gate itself, not that I've heard of, although today through tomorrow, there are high fire danger warnings, and we're expecting possibly some lightning storms coming through. So we are on high alert, and they like to cut off our power when that happens. So if I disappear automatically, that's probably what happened. So not at the moment, but we'll see after the next couple days. So, but we do have a lot of smoke. This morning, I peeked my head out because I didn't know if it was smoke or fog. Luckily, it was fog, and now it's smoke. So a lot of smoke here, but we're still okay as far as safety from fire.
Yeah, recently watched one of the old Hugh Hauser shows, his California Gold series, and he did a show on the Nike missile site up in your neck of the woods. And of course, we have them down here as well, but yours is different in that it's almost operating. I mean, they've kept all the machinery and the launch systems and the missiles themselves, of course, without the warheads, but nevertheless, everything is working, and the launch things can raise up from the basement and then kind of go to a launch operation, and it's really interesting. So I'm sure one can find it on either Netflix or maybe YouTube as well. I think I watched it on YouTube. So it was a really interesting program.
It is, thank you. And the majority of the staff there are docents, some of them docents that worked in Nike missile sites back in the day, and they're the ones that maintain all the machinery. And we've had to start taking video interviews of some of those docents so that we could pass that knowledge on into the future, because some of them are getting into their 90s and 80s, and so we don't want to lose that. So that's a project we're undertaking right now, is those video documentaries of our volunteers and how they're taking care of that equipment. So
it's really cool.
It is.
So I will, there's another question here, but to stay on the Nike missile site real quick, when I was there, the Mythbusters, if you're familiar with the Mythbusters, they actually came and did an episode on launching some kind of rocket. And I can't remember what it was, but the joke was at the park, the Mythbusters are the only ones to actually launch a missile at the Nike missile site. But here's a question about Muir Woods. Do you only use buses at Muir Woods? Can you explain the new reservation system and the busing system?
Yes. So there's there's actually several ways to visit Muir Woods. You can go online and make a reservation in order to bring your car. Right now, kind of challenging because due to COVID, they've had to reduce the amount of reservations that they take per day. The second way is to go online, or you don't even need a reservation, is to take the Muir Woods shuttle. And so you can go online to look at those spaces, and they pick up along Highway 101 at the Spencer Avenue exit. And so there's a parking lot there where you can park and then hop on the bus. And they have different hours based on the time of year.
You want to go to Muir Woods?
So, and then other ways are locals know to park along Panoramic and the upper streets that go through the park and then hike on down in. So that's another way people come in, is just hiking from other areas down into the park. So yeah. So if you Google Muir Woods shuttle, it'll bring you right to the site, and then it'll give you the information of the current cost of tickets and how often the bus is running.
And thank you, Kendall, for posting the that link on how to get to Muir Woods or how to visit. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I know parking reservations often book up very quickly, so the shuttle is usually the way to go. And planning ahead really helps, because we'll often be down at Muir Beach with volunteers, and there are a lot of visitors that find themselves at Muir Beach trying to make reservations on their phones because there is no service at Muir Woods. So planning ahead of time is essential trying to visit that part of the park.
Yeah.
Any
And then
other?
some of them are willing to hike that 2 miles up into the woods too. If they don't have reservations for parking.
Yeah, you could conceivably park, or you could conceivably hike up the Dipsy Trail and down in to the park too, up over the ridge. But that's a really long, difficult hike.
Yes, it is. I've done pieces of it, never the whole thing, but yeah. So.
Any other questions for Kendall or Tracy?
Wow. Well, thank you everyone for having us here. It's so amazing, the dedication of volunteers and the amazing job you've done, Sarah, with Channel Islands and Cabrillo, and really bringing everybody together and keeping everybody engaged. And this is a great way to do it. And I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And Kendall.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking, like I said, taking the time and sharing with us. And hopefully we can find ways to collaborate more in the future. So thank you both so much for your time. And I think you've got some people who are interested now in coming up and seeing Golden Gate that haven't been up there before. So, all right.
Visit. I put my email address in the chat. So if people have more questions or want to reach out, just, feel free to email anytime. I'm still teleworking 40 hours a week. So I hope to be able to answer your question.
Great.
Come visit us. It's beautiful. Don't come on a Saturday right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Rodeo Beach had more visitors than I've ever seen in my 6 years here last Saturday. So I think everybody's a little antsy from being inside. So if you can come on a non-weekend day right now, it's not very crowded and it's really pretty.
I'm looking out the window right now on the beautiful 23rd day of August, and the beach is completely full. So definitely avoid the weekends. But thanks everybody for spending your Sunday with us. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Thank you both so much. And have a great rest of your Sunday and have a great week.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank
Bye.
you.